everyone, just want to give a quick thank you to all of you who watched the eShop video. It's almost at 1 million views, and I'm sure it will be by the time this weekend is up. And I'm really honored and so thrilled that all of you loved the crazy journey that was our eShop video. There's a lot of new folks who subscribed and who are now watching the channel thinking I'm going to make more content like the eShop video. And the answer to that is I would love to do more stuff like the eShop video without the spending $23,000 thing attached to it. But what you're going to watch today, as most of my fans know, is an episode of The Completionist New Game Plus. It's a show where I'm recompleting games from my original 120 episode lineup. We're getting close to the end, but I usually create a show called The Completionist, and it's me talking about games, how I love them, how they make me feel, and hopefully you share those feelings too. So enjoy, and thanks for watching.
In November of 2011, just 1 month after I started The Completionist, I was issued a challenge to complete a game. But not just any game, it was Super Meat Boy, the notoriously difficult 2D platformer that was taking the world by storm. I had never heard of this game, but suddenly I was freaking out because on Twitter, I received a challenge that came from the game's creator, Edmund McMillan, after one of my fans, Ryan, pointed him towards my videos. Shout outs to Ryan. I hope you're doing well, dude, and I hope you're still watching. What followed was one of the toughest times I've ever had completing a game, but the experience was honestly life-changing. Completing Super Meat Boy remains one of the highlights of my career. Completing it 2 additional times since its initial release for this episode showed me that even after all this time, there is still so much more to learn and master.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist New Game Plus, a show where I'm recompleting the first 120 games ever featured here on the Completionist lineup. As we wind down the long journey of New Game Plus, I realize how lucky I am to be able to revisit the past in this way. And it all would have been impossible without all of your support at home via Patreon, Twitch, and all of you here on YouTube. So thank you from the bottom of my heart from me and the team. I have been nervous to recomplete Super Meat Boy since I started the entire New Game Plus project. In fact, I think that's the only game that really made me irk when I thought of the idea of New Game Plus. Not sure if you've heard, but this game has a bit of a reputation for being extremely hard. Now, the game's not for everyone, but completing Super Meat Boy is particularly demanding. And when I completed the game originally, in the original rating, I didn't really give one because, well, canonically, it killed me. The challenge factor is high, but Super Meat Boy is still a marvel that not only changed the indie game industry, but my own life too. Edmund, if you're watching, this one's for you. Thank you for all of your hard work and for bringing us amazing titles like this, The Binding of Isaac. Let's begin.
And the battle continues! This could turn it all around! This bout will determine who is the strongest once and for all!
If you never played Super Meat Boy before, you like platforming games, and you like pain, you should get on it. This game basically helped define what indies and indie distribution could look like on consoles. It was a massive success and became a point of pride for those who were insane enough to attempt to even complete it. And yeah, that would be me. Super Meat Boy also has a special place in completionist history. In a tweet that's literally 12 years old at this point, I was issued a friendly challenge by the creator of the game, Edmund McMillan. And by friendly challenge, I mean in all caps called out saying that there was no way I would succeed and that I would fail. The combination of being called out by the creator, the fact that Ryan, this awesome fan, had made that happen, the game's popularity, and the shortage of people willing to record themselves going insane trying to complete it at the time put me right in that very sweet spot. This episode was number 7 of the original Completionist lineup. It gained notoriety and was spread around the internet in ways that were unprecedented to me back then. I learned that viewers loved watching me suffer, and Super Meat Boy delivers that in spades. Now, in my original video, I made a lot of jokes about my thumbs and body being destroyed from completing the game. It sounds like an over-exaggeration, but it really isn't. Super Meat Boy requires you to be fully on if you're going to complete everything everything it has to offer. And in my younger days, I was happy to accept the challenge. 2D platformers were, and to some degree still are, the bread and butter of retro gaming YouTube. Super Meat Boy has the DNA of classic platforming games. The style was easy to recognize even for non-gamers and made for great entertaining video content. But it's more than just rage bait. This game is a perfectly tuned Swiss watch of hardcore platforming action. It is also a time capsule, a perfect representation of early online humor. Originally made popular as a Flash title just called Meat Boy, this game made the rounds on Newgrounds. Super Meat Boy is an expanded version of that, and I first completed it on the Xbox Live Arcade, where it initially debuted. If you're looking for a blow-by-blow of the original development of Super Meat Boy and the struggles that happened along the way, I'd recommend checking out Indie Game the Movie. I will admit that it has aged a little weirdly, but the story is still good and still represents what they went through back then. Super Meat Boy challenged preconceptions of what a platforming game could look and feel like. It is, first and foremost, blisteringly fast. Stages are short, meant to be completed in seconds. There's a philosophy fused into the DNA of this game of don't think, just do. There are only a handful of mechanics to worry about, but every one of them must be completely mastered to even finish the game, much less complete it. The game is all about speed and pixel perfect accuracy. The premise is simple, told in a beautiful hand-drawn opening cinematic that I loved then and still do now. Meat Boy is in love with Bandage Girl, but Dr. Fetus, who hates him, has kidnapped her. As Meat Boy, you've got to rescue Bandage Girl any way you can, and you do this by making it from one end of a stage to another. Along the way are saws, spikes, bottomless pits, weird creepy monsters, all kinds of nasty things you have to avoid. Brushing against any of these obstacles at all results in instant death. You've got a dash, a jump, you can wall jump, that's about it. The dash influences momentum and you can control how Meat Boy falls through the air because he's really floaty. Super Meat Boy is divided into chapters. Each themed chapter has a certain amount of levels and every level has a much more difficult Dark World counterpart. That's not all. There are also glitch levels, warpstone levels, and boss levels. There are collectible band-aids to find, tons of secret characters to unlock, but collecting bandages and making it to the very end of the stage is one of the harder aspects of this game. Every level must be completed with an A+ ranking, achieved by reaching Bandage Girl under a certain amount of time. Super Meat Boy was a celebration of what I would call Twitch gameplay, where reflexes and perfection were king. But the game also celebrated the indie landscape at the time it came out. The biggest unlockables in Super Meat Boy are additional playable characters, which are unlocked by finding band-aids and completing character warpstone levels. Most of them in the original release were references to other Flash games. Alien Hominid, Commander Video from Bit Trip Runner, the kid from I Wanna Be the Guy, they were here. I died probably over 8,000 times in my original video when I completed this game on the Xbox 360, but I somehow completed that game and produced an entire video about it in less than 3 days. Recompleting it may not have had the time compression aspect, but it was still a nerve-shredding experience that I'm not sure how I accomplished again.
Hey everyone, I want to take a quick break today to thank our sponsor, Street Fighter Duel. I'm proud to be a hashtag Street Fighter Duel partner for this hashtag ad because I've been a diehard Street Fighter fan for decades. The iconic characters, the awesome moves, the music, the depth of strategy, everything about the world of Street Fighter is always wonderful. So I'm stoked to be checking out Street Fighter Duel, a total new way to experience Street Fighter. You can download this fast-paced mobile game right now. I always remember being captivated by Street Fighter as a kid. Every character feels larger than life, so being able to build a team of my favorites in Street Fighter Duel to challenge friends is kind of a cool thing. Combining Street Fighter with role-playing mechanics works well, and there's a lot of satisfaction in upgrading your characters with gear and experience points. There's even epic boss fights to tackle, which requires some real strategy. In Street Fighter Duel, Capcom pulls deep from the nostalgia well, taking classic characters and art from the 80s and 90s straight into a modern game. This is the first true RPG in the Street Fighter space. And seeing these characters support each other as a team to overcome obstacles is pretty sick. You can even use iconic specials and attacks, but in a totally new context. If you ever wanted to see Chun-Li absolutely wreck a group of opponents as Guile and Ryu boost her with backup, now's your chance. Battles feel quick and satisfying and provide that signature rush of adrenaline that Capcom is known for. I'm so used to seeing these characters battle each other one-on-one, so it's a blast to create your team of 4 and have them interact in entirely new ways. You can play in single-player mode to experience an original story featuring your favorite fighters. Because hey, you know me, I love me a good story. Or you can hook up with friends and play Street Fighter Duel cooperatively or competitively. Download Street Fighter Duel now using the link in the box down below. And if you want to see how the developer is continuing to support this new take on Street Fighter, follow along on their socials. Also linked down below. Thank you again to Crunchyroll Games for making me a partner in all of this. Now, back to the video.
Super Meat Boy is a masterclass in game design. The developers put everything they had into this game because it was their M&M one-shot mom spaghetti opportunity to get it right. And they absolutely did. And then, as the game became a massive success and was released on practically every platform under the sun, things got a little altered. The simple, understandable gameplay premise of Super Meat Boy has always been its strength. Newer versions of the game on other platforms add several additional layers of challenge. Several years ago, Alex and I played through Super Meat Boy on my Let's Play channel, Super Beard Brothers. I felt like a little sensei teaching a pupil. As I blasted through every stage, I appreciated just how well designed Super Meat Boy is on every level. If you're interested in the game design philosophies here, there is much to be learned. And I realized that some of the skills I learned to complete this game originally are still deep within my bones somewhere. Now, I found this old Gama Sutra interview from 2010 with Edmund, and he talked about how the game was made with a few core principles in mind. Keep levels small, keep the action constant, and reward the player. These might sound like simple concepts, and they are, but they are executed in Super Meat Boy perfectly. While I was completing it on Super Beard Brothers, I once again played it on the Xbox 360. But since finishing that series, more modern versions of the game have been released. Since there's a good amount of additional content, I made sure to complete the Steam version as well. No spoilers on my rating, but this was the start of my descent into hell. I have probably died thousands and thousands and thousands of times as I recompleted this game, once on the 360 and then once again on Steam, for a total of lifetime playthroughs of 3 over the last decade or so. And for 99% of those deaths, I feel humbled to say they were my own fault. There is so much fine tuning on how Meat Boy moves, jumps, and lands that I always felt in control, like I was responsible. No matter how many times you pick up and play, it always feels good to dash and jump, and every death is a micro lesson on how to improve. The other playable characters are fun to control, do not get me wrong, but Team Meat nailed it by making their mascot character feel perfect. Having already completed this game, I also appreciate the overall difficulty curve. Chapter 1 is, all things considered, pretty simple, but by the time you reach the secret Chapter 7, things have shifted considerably. Yet the challenge ramp up is extremely smooth. You might not notice how good you're getting until you go back and play earlier chapters after making it further into the game. One of the most satisfying feelings I've ever had is going back to earlier chapters and blasting through them in one sitting. Little did I know how important doing this would eventually become. My approach to completing Super Meat Boy this time around was to fully complete one chapter at a time, including collecting all bandages, finishing Warp Zone levels, and earning an A+ ranking on every stage. Then returning to the start of the chapter and doing the Dark World levels as well. Dark World is basically expert versions of every level that are extremely hardcore, but they still feel within reach at all times. The overall feel here is accessible, yet still tough. Even if I had to replay a stage 5 dozen times, it never felt too strenuous thanks to the instant reloads and infinite lives. Super Meat Boy manages to appeal to old school platforming fans too with the inclusion of the Warp Zone stages. These have always been a highlight of this game for me, as each one is stylistically a reference to a part of gaming history, or even just flat out the indie gaming scene. There's a Warp Zone stage that looks and sounds like it was developed for the original Game Boy. Another one plays to the strengths of the unlockable Commander video, letting the character use their signature float ability. In Warp Zone levels, the player has limited lives. Lose all your lives and you are kicked right back onto the map. But it's only a temporary setback, as once they're unlocked, you can just easily try that level again until you finish it. Almost every level in this game is challenging yet rewarding. The relief when you earn an A+ on a level after trying 50 times in a row is a wonderful feeling. I loved how every chapter has a distinct visual aesthetic, and the soundtrack is still a big highlight. As they've gone on to release newer versions of Super Meat Boy, the soundtrack has been swapped out with a new composer due to some personal disputes between the creators. I personally prefer the Danny B soundtrack from the original game, but there are some arguments to be made in favor of the new versions too. If you've played The Binding of Isaac, you're prepared for Macmillan's dark humor. It is very much present in Super Meat Boy, as evidenced by the short cutscene after beating the boss in Chapter 1. I still feel a little bad about all those squirrels, even though I couldn't help but laugh at their ultimate fate. Super Meat Boy is frequently gross and sophomoric. It relies a lot on edginess and shock value, but that's kind of the point. And there's a tenderness at the core of this game. Super Meat Boy himself is literally a raw nerve who can perish from the slightest rough contact. Yet he seeks Bandage Girl because she makes him feel safe. They are improbably soulmates. I even felt empathetic towards Dr. Fetus, who just wants to be loved. Unrepentant or not, there's some humanity to be found there, even when he does give you that glorious middle finger. All of the best parts of Super Meat Boy remain amazing. The in-game completion percentage tracker is hugely helpful. For completionists, the UI plays a large role here. Every chapter has its own completion percentage that contributes to an overall total. There is actually higher than 100% completion available. If you include the 6 secret glitch levels, you can earn 100% completion. Many players will earn more, however, if they decide to do the extra online stages. Not required, but they are there. The glitch levels only unlock if you die on a stage a certain number of times until Bandage Girl or Meat Boy reappears as a glitched out blob. These are among the most difficult levels Super Meat Boy has to offer. Earning that extra percentage is a worthy challenge. I almost wish I could end this video on that sentiment, but I learned over 10 years ago that all of you love pain. So here's where the needles come out, folks. Okay. Completionists on Steam or PlayStation or any other modern consoles that have achievements have a hell of a journey to overcome. The 360 version that I completed years ago only had 12 achievements, but on Steam, that number balloons to a whopping 48. And it's not like they added achievements that were just that much simple or free for doing the game as it is. I went from feeling proud and confident that I could still complete Super Meat Boy after all these years to having serious self-doubt and imposter syndrome. For me, many of these achievements actively take away from the enjoyment of the completion process. Okay, maybe I'm old, or maybe just not as good as I used to be, but my confidence was wrecked as I started to chase these final achievements. Part of the completion complexity is linked to obscurity. There are 5 achievements fittingly named after meat cooking temperatures, called rare, medium, medium well, and well done, that ask the player to spend as little time as possible in a level. Earning an A+ rank in every stage is not enough. I still can't confirm the exact time, just that it has to be short. Super Meat Boy already demands speed, and these achievements demand even more of it. But see, that's not even the tough end of the achievements. No, my friends. I was faced with the daunting task of completing entire chapters without dying once. One more time. I have to complete every chapter without dying once. That's Light World and Dark World variants as well. Think about that for a second. This is a game where you learn by dying over and over and over and over again. There's a famous replay feature built into it that shows you all the times you died on your way to victory. But these achievements force you to be perfect. Doesn't matter if I made it through 19 levels out of 20 in a chapter without touching a single saw blade. The second I died on that stage, it was back to the beginning of the chapter to try it all over again. I don't really associate Super Meat Boy with grinding, but that's what I found myself doing for this set of achievements. These achievements demand perfection in a way that sits a little uncomfortably with me with the ethos of what was established here. I never thought of completing this game as punishing until I started chasing down these achievements. A quick glance at Steam stats show that less than 2% of the total players have managed to even hit these high expectations. I want to emphasize that the bulk of the achievements, even hitting an A+ ranking on every level, not bad at all. Very doable. Frustrating, yes, not bad. But these updated achievements are an entirely different and more difficult thing to ask of the player, especially because of the last level called Cotton Alley. This is the world that almost destroyed me back in the day. Even the original game, World 7, is the hardest part hands down. You take control of Bandage Girl for the final few levels to rescue Super Meat Boy. Completing these levels already had me tearing my beard out. And now you're telling me that the added achievements have made things even harder for me. Are you kidding me here? Cotton Alley is the final exam for Super Meat Boy, containing aspects from every other world in the game. As a bonus world, it's frustrating, but the first time through, it's kind of great. But grinding on no death Steam achievements for completionists is a true nightmare. On the one hand, there are no band-aids to find, and the A+ speed requirements are relatively easy to hit. On the other, absolutely this quote-unquote bonus world. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned it, there are actually even more levels in the Steam version of the game. The Christmas levels. These feature the kid from I Wanna Be the Guy, who has a double jump. Not only did I have to A+ these levels, but there's another achievement for finishing this chapter in one play session. So I really had to bring out all my skills to bear if I wanted that golden gift achievement. So when it finally came to me circling the drain on some of these more difficult achievements, the biggest thing that I had to take into consideration was studying speedrunners. The Super Meat Boy speedrunning community is phenomenal. Tons of videos exist of people explaining the best way to get these achievements done. Without their help, I honestly could not have done it. Even doing things out of order helped me significantly. For things like Cotton Alley, which is the most difficult world out of the whole game, I had to start at the very end first. So when I finally got that last achievement, it was way easier than those last two levels. But when I say way easier, I mean not that much easier. Cotton Alley, let alone Dark World Cotton Alley, is so hard. It will change you. It will. Look, I still love enjoying challenging games. I will always have an abiding love and respect for Super Meat Boy and what it means to me personally. But, and this is a massive understatement here, I don't think many of these achievements feel very rewarding to earn. Rather than a weird victory lap showing that you are the master of this game, they only exist to crush your soul. And the worst part, for a game packed with bonuses and a nice rewarding feeling, finishing these absurdly hard achievements yet nets you nothing. It is always a shock to play a game you thought you knew inside and out and to be surprised by something completely different and new. Super Meat Boy is one such game for me. I love it. I was good at it. I think it's an indie classic that deserves all the praise it has ever received. But earning these updated achievements is for masochists only. Even bigger masochist than I already am. Most of the achievements can be earned by doing a normal completionist run. Earning A+ rank in all light and dark world stages, finishing every warp zone, finding every bandage, unlocking every playable character. This is all well and good. I always love seeing the completion percentage reach as high as it can go. And I like the unlockable characters that didn't exist before, like Head Crab and Minecraft Steve. Super Meat Boy has the innate sense of reward that you feel when overcoming a nearly impossible challenge. But I think the no death achievements are just a bridge too far. They take the experience of completing this game from out of reach but doable to straight up, I don't recommend trying to do this. It's tremendously unfun and took me months and months to figure out. In a Gamma Sutra article titled Ed McMillan, Why So Hard?, the game's creator has some beautiful words about game design. He says that video games are exercises in learning and growing. The designer acts as the teacher, giving the player problems that escalate in difficulty, hoping their course will help them learn as they go, get better, and feel good about what they achieved along the way. This article was written in 2010. Before these no death achievements were added to this game. I still believe this statement about design, especially as it applies to this game, is true, but I'm not sure what is being taught with no death runs as they are applied here. It feels like it's reserved just for the true Super Meat Boy fans. Recompleting this game on Steam took me well over 200 hours across several years. It's a masterclass in how to create a game that is easy to learn but tough to master. As I attempted to complete each chapter without dying, I felt like the walls were closing in. It was an ultimately exhausting experience. Even as I've grown older and gotten more experienced in this field, Super Meat Boy was there to smack me down again and remind me what it's like to feel challenged and also to feel pain. When you hear the name Super Meat Boy, you probably think of a few things. Challenge, tough but fair, overcoming the impossible, the height of indie game supremacy, fantastic music, memorable art direction, and the deep satisfaction that comes with doing something difficult and overcoming things. Not me, not anymore. When I hear Super Meat Boy, I think you can go f yourself. The updated achievements are just too much. I respect Edmund, I respect Tommy, I respect everyone who has touched this game and made it wonderful. but I can confidently say that after completing it nearly 3 times in the last decade, I never want to play this game ever again.
Super Meat Boy will always have a legacy of being one of the most iconic indie games of all time. For me, I will always associate it with overcoming the challenge presented to me of completing the original Xbox 360 version. Completing it again felt like having an old friend visit, having a great time, and then being asked to close my eyes and have them kick me in the nuts. Since I didn't give a true rating the first time around, Super Meat Boy gets my completionist rating of finish it. Go for that in-game max completion rate as you see fit, just to say that you did all the levels, and then call it a day. Those achievements are beyond f***ing